Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the 20-minute fashion distraction. I'm Jackie Jenkins. You know what we do every Wednesday night. We talk total fashion, and tonight is no different. I'm excited. Tonight's topic is something it's near and dear. In addition to the fact, I think it's just very timely. One of the things that we like to do is on the 20-minute fashion distraction is not only talk about fashion, but talk about how fashion can show up in our lives. Just quickly want to make a plug for these fashion distraction. If you could do us a huge favor and share the show, that will be awesome. To keep a track of the different fashion tips and ideas, please follow J Curations and definitely follow the Facebook page, Sophisticated Curations. So, as I do every Wednesday night, we have an amazing topic, and tonight's topic is all about post COVID and our personal branding. And I think my sister Jocelyn, who just jumped on, hey, and Gail, Judith, Jocelyn said it the best when she said, "The world has changed. How have you?" And I think that is so telling in terms of how we think about life post COVID. And with that in mind, I am going to bring on my guest, Sheri Collins. And Sheri, hi.
Hello! How
Good.
are you?
I am wonderful. I am wonderful. Good to see you. I was just opening up by saying, kind of the theme for tonight's show is the world. My sister said it a couple shows back. The world has changed post COVID. How have you?
How have
And I think so much of as we think about our personal style in this moment is key. And before we go into that, I want to share a little bit about you and why I thought you needed to be on the show and why the audience needed to hear you. I see my mom is here. I see
Oh,
Jackie's here. Thanks, Jack, for the puppet up.
yeah.
So, Cherie, and I'm going to read. So, you guys know how I do this. I read the personal bio and then I have my own little personal. I read the bio and then I have my own personal thoughts that I'll share. So, the personal bio is Sheri Collins has built a career in marketing communications and sales for over 25 years. 10 years ago, and I love this story, she basically resigned as a director of marketing from a healthcare company in Detroit. I don't know what it is with Detroit. I have more folks from Detroit on the show. I love
That
it. I
was
love it. I love it.
fabulous.
I know, seriously, I have more people from Detroit. But with $1,000 in her pocket and a dream to make it big in NYC, Cherie came on. So today, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you went from just moving here to what you're currently doing. Today, Cherie is the director of sales and marketing for the speaking division of the Shark Group. Yes, that's Damon John's company, the star of Shark Tank. I jokingly say that Cherie is the person that makes sure not only do we have amazing insight from our top shark, Damon, but also Cherie is the one that leads his speaking engagements. She's the expert personal branding for Damon John's Inner Circle training, which focuses on small business owners and startups of their brands. And if you all are familiar with Shark Tank, you know that startups are a key part of how Damon thinks about not only his brand, but really expanding the brands of others. Cherie's spirit and inspiring style has, and I love this, has mused audiences of adults and students alike. Here's a list of some of the areas where Cherie has recently spoken: the National Association of Administrative Professionals, New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, Hampton University, and the Rutgers School of Business. She has earned her graduate degree at the Michigan State University and her MBA from the University of Phoenix. And I say this very lovingly. Cherie is my soror, and she is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta.
Mhm.
So, ooh, to you, soror.
Ooh.
But I gotta tell my story.
Yeah.
So, you never know who you're going to meet. And I think that's one of the lovely things about being in New York and being in fashion. And so, long story short, I met Sheri at an event. She gave me her card. I think a year later, we somehow connected. And she said, well, why don't you just stop by my office and have, meet me before we get started in the morning, and we'll get to chat, right? And, of course, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever, whatever, whatever. So it was a Friday morning. It was
Mhm.
a beautiful Friday morning in New York, and this is when we were still commuting to work. And so I took the train over, and I will never forget this because it was such a wonderful story, and it really, I think, talks about dreams and inspiration. So I get there, and so I tell and I still had not fully connected that you work for Damon, right? So I'm just
Oh, okay.
I
Mhm.
just wasn't making the connection. So I get there, and the guy in the lobby, he said, oh, he said, well, I said, well, what floor should I go to? He was like, well, just hit PH. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh. So we start the morning off at the penthouse.
That's
So
good. Yeah.
we go up to the penthouse of the Shark Group. I go up to the penthouse of the Shark Group, and it was such an inspirational moment, because the Shark Group, not only does it feature Damon, but it also features the different entrepreneurs that he has continued to steadily build. And it was just one of those moments where you say, this is the energy that you want around you as you think about how to build a brand. So, Cherie, I thank you for that. That was an amazing morning. It was just really wonderful. It was just really wonderful. So let's just jump right into it. We have 20 minutes, and everybody, hey, Adrian.
I
And
see
Adrian's a soror.
it.
Lisa's here. She's a soror. It's a lot of sorors here.
Yes.
So, my first question is, what is your personal branding story, and how did you connect with Damon John?
It's so funny because you kind of started it, right? It's always the divine connections like that. I'd moved to New York with $1,000 in my purse and a dream of making it some kind of way in New York. I thought it would be fashion, and through a bunch of divine connections, I met Damon at the National Black MBA conference. And I have to talk about it, but it's really kind of timely because I did not know who Damon was, and I didn't wear FUBU. We were preppy, in 1982. We were preppy, and but I did know one of the other VIP speakers that I was responsible for, and it was Biz Marquis.
Oh,
Yes, rest in peace.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Biz Marquis. Yeah. So I fanned out over Biz. It was really bad what I did. It
yeah.
was awesome, but it was so good to know that I got to see him and help him get fried chicken at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what I did.
I love
But
it.
anyway, Damon was speaking on a panel, and he was actually doing press after it was over. And I noticed that his tie was crooked. And I was on my way over to help him, correct it because he's taking pictures with people. And um, I noticed that his driver was still in the room. This is the Atlanta Civic Center, right? It's forever to get to the car, right? But this guy is like in the car, in the room, fanned out. So on my way over to Damon, I went and I said, you really need to get out of here to go get the car because he's got a flight at, okay? And I sent him out to go get the car. And then on my way over to Damon, the executive director was like, do you think he would have time to talk to people? And some student entrepreneurs. So perfect. He doesn't have to waste his time, right? So I went over and adjusted his tie it all up on him, because I'm a stylist. I put bras on people. You know. So I said, excuse me, the executive director would like you to speak to someone. Do you mind? I sent your driver out. Now you don't have to wait. You can speak to them and yada yada. So when we were walking out, I said, everybody's asked you questions, and do you mind if I ask you one? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, I'm a stylist with an MBA, and I've applied to Vogue and Elle and even Oprah Winfrey's fashion department, and they really just want someone just out of college. They weren't looking for me. I said they don't seem to get me, and he said, anybody can call themselves a stylist. He said you're not a stylist, you're a brand architect. And for the first time, I realized I didn't have to leave my love for fashion and style together, but expand it, right? And combine branding and style, my marketing and business prowess, right, into this one area that encompasses everything. So that's why it's so cool about our conversation today, that it's really about being a brand stylist and styling your brand using the elements of style, right?
I love that. And as we talk about post COVID and how we're coming out and what that means, I think that's a key point. This is the point where I'm supposed to tell the audience to grab a piece of paper or your digital notebook to actually write down the thoughts about what Sheri is going to ask as we think about our own personal brand. So with that, and thank you, Judith, for,
Mm-hmm.
for your comment. What are three questions you would like to challenge the audience to think about as they begin to think about their personal brand post COVID?
Right. It's everybody keeps talking about a new normal, and I feel like this whole year is about transition. So not only we transition in seasons, but we're transitioning how we do business, how we interact and communicate with each other, and so it's far more of a lifestyle issue, right? And so when we think about how do we make a great first impression, we talk about your personal brand. I always like to ask, how do you make a great first impression today? And somebody they can type it in if they want, but what do you think, Jackie?
So the first question, I want to make sure everybody gets this. So the first question is, how do you make, repeat it so that we're saying, so
Yeah, this one is easy. How do you think you make a first great impression? A great first impression, I should say.
okay. So you asked me the question. Well,
Yeah.
one thing that I try and do to make a
Mhm.
great first impression is,
Spill the tea.
facility. I actually try and be on time.
Hmm.
I always
Hmm.
make sure that I show up on time.
Hmm.
I see Judith says, smile at people. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Hey, Steffi. Steffi says hi. That's
hi,
one of my stylist friends. But
hi.
yes, yes, definitely. Be on time, make great eye contact, all of that. Okay, let me ask you another question. How do you feel when you can't find somebody or a company online?
Say that again.
How do you feel when you can't find someone online
Interesting.
or a
Frustrated.
company? What's the first thing you do? You're going to meet someone tomorrow.
Yep.
First thing we do is do what?
Look them up socially. Yes.
We look them up on this phone, right?
Yep.
So I really, really challenge people to understand post COVID, we live in a virtual world. It's even more critical. We're zooming. We all we're doing is zooming and working remotely. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that our brand is authentic online, right? And so when I'm thinking about, so people always say, well, what do I do? Right? And that's the thing that we talked about. What do we do?
So, and I see a lot
How do
of
we come up with that? I'm
I
sorry.
see a lot of frustrated.
Look
Steve,
at
thank
them.
you
See,
for telling us. He says
exactly.
Google. You're absolutely right. So, what if we don't? I mean, we still have another question for you to
Yeah,
ask. What if we don't have a social presence, or what should our social presence be online?
yeah. And that's the hard part for everybody. People like, Damon says, describe yourself in 3 to 5 words. Some people say you have one word that describes your vision for your brand. But really, that's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out what are those words, right? Everybody's afraid. So I think I've come up with 3 really great questions to ask to make people kind of thought starters. And remember, we were talking about the exercises. Think about you're going to be on the cover of a magazine in about 5 years, right? So, what magazine is it? And what got you on the cover of the magazine?
So you're challenging our audience. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure everybody gets the challenge to
yeah.
repeat that.
And I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a few little questions that we've already posted online, and she's going to post them too to help you come up with some ideas. But first of all, you're going to figure out you're going to be on the cover of a magazine in 5 years.
Yep. So
What magazine is it?
okay. And if you guys feel if you want to, please drop in the chat which magazine you want
Yes,
to be in.
because the magazine is going to give you an insight into your personal brand.
Okay.
Some
And then
people might say Entrepreneur Magazine. Jackie, you might say what? Vogue.
I might say Vogue. I like money, so I might say
Oh, yeah.
Vogue. Might
Mhm.
say Forbes.
Forbes, exactly. That tells us, what you are, a little bit about your brand already, right? And so then you think about what did you do to get on the cover? Because if you did something to get on the cover, you had to be fabulous.
I like that. And
Mhm.
Judith says Vogue. We La Quinta, who actually made my hat last week, says Vogue, and I so agree. Steve
And
says
a
company. Great, great,
fast
great.
company, yes.
And of course,
So
my creative buddy Jackie said variety. I
of
love it. I love
course.
I
I
love it.
love it, love it, love it. So we got it right there, right? So what did you do to get on the cover? So remember, people tell you to think big, right? But if you say you're going to be on the cover of a magazine, then you have to obviously think big because you had to have done something newsworthy. So allow yourself to dream. What did you do, right?
So,
And what does the cover say? And so I have three questions for you
okay.
that allow you to kind of say, God, what did I do on the cover? And the first one is, what is the most fascinating thing about you?
Ooh, I like that question.
Yeah. And that's one of the ones that I have a card for you on social media at the Perfect Stylist, and you'll have it too. But it's what's the most fascinating thing about you? The second one is, what's the story that other people tell about you?
Ooh, I like that one. So,
Folks brag on you, right?
uh-huh, uh-huh. So that's kind of like what are people saying when you're not in the room?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. And then
Okay.
the last question is, what I really want to do is.
What you really want to do is okay. So what we will do is definitely post these questions on our
Hmm.
social media.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a great point as we think about post COVID and kind of what's next, what our personal brand will look like. And you're right. Like if we're gonna take all this new energy and really embody the change, we've got to think big. We've
And
got
we
to think
need to do, what do? We have to define ourselves in the relevant terms of today. That is a brand revival. So
big.
post COVID, each and everything that has changed and influenced. Like I told you, I didn't. I had. It was difficult for me to figure out what to take, how to pack for a trip. I haven't like put together fabulous outfits in so long. I kind of lost my skill. And I said, wow, let me start. So, that's why I like when you do shop your closet, because now we have to think about, I barely transitioned my closet. I
Right,
still have sweaters
right.
hanging up.
So
And so,
we will do some posts on that. You're absolutely right. And I
mhm,
know I'm scheduled to go back in the office at the beginning of August, and you're right. I
mhm.
started thinking about like what does that look like?
Have you worn heels?
Oh no, I no, I tried and I miserably failed. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, can you repeat the second question?
Oh, what's the story that other people tell about you? Sometimes it's difficult for us to brag on ourselves. Like, I know it's hard for me, but me and Jackie did it the other day. She told me, like, she just did it today. I'm going to read her bio, but then I'm going to tell you how I talk about her. So your friends will do that for you. So when you find it hard to kind of brag on yourself, kind of say, "Hi, what do you tell people about me?" You know, I learned it from my clients. One client was like, I was telling this guy the other day, he's a restaurant guy. I was telling this other guy the other day, you were like having my very own CMO. I could just pick up on the phone and ask you a question. So those are the things I had no idea he looked at me like that. So it helps, when you talk about your personal brand and connection with your business and how you influence the people around you at work, even.
And it also speaks to how you impact others, which is
Yeah.
really key as we think about our brand. I hear you, Wilma. Yes, my heels have dust too. I don't know what
Yeah,
I'm
girl,
wearing.
yeah.
So, Sheree,
Luckily, sneakers are fashion. Okay.
yeah, I know. But like I said, I tried to wear heels a couple weeks ago and I kind of failed miserably. So I got to relook at that.
I don't know.
But can you talk about, because of course we're running up on our 20 minutes. Can
Mhm.
you talk about the next big project that you're working on in branding?
Yes, yes. I am working on a book, my first book, and it's based on all personal branding stuff that I talk about at Inner Circle, and my ideas. And it's a little bit about my story, using myself as an example. And I think it's going to be fun because I'm really what I'm doing is taking people through a strategic visioning process for their personal brand. What I used to do at corporate, but it'll be fun in a book.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And how can the audience find you?
Oh, everywhere at the Curvy Stylist. But follow us. Let's connect on LinkedIn because we have business to do too. You know.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I want to see if there are any
Any
questions
questions?
in from the audience. Okay. Well, we're at our 20 minutes.
Mhm.
As we said, what we will definitely repost the questions as we start to continue to think about what our brands will be post COVID. And as I close every show, I like to acknowledge that there are things in life that we can't get back, and time is one of them. So, Cherie, I thank you so much for making the time, for sharing your talents to the audience. I thank you guys for coming back every Wednesday. It just makes my heart joy. Um,
And let me say on air, congratulations on 1 year.
thank you.
I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's post COVID. That's you didn't have that in your brand a year ago.
I didn't. No, you're right. You're right. This is a COVID thing.
Mhm.
Zinda says, thank you. This is right on time. So we are going to close. I wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful week. Thanks for being here. And we're going to stay on this theme of building our brands and what's our look and what's our feel for post COVID. And I'll see you next week. Hi, Leah. Good night.